Matthew Howard published a study in the Oxford Press Journal. They literally showed that adult brain can form new neural connections well later into life if they're exposed to repeated learning and practice. Now, that literally means that our brain is never stuck. It's an ongoing draft and you're holding the pen. Every action, every thought, every choice is like casting a vote in your brain. The pathways you take most get stronger. The ones you don't fade away. And your brain, we think that these votes might feel insignificant alone, but together they add up. And we still dismiss the small because it does not feel dramatic. But our brain is a machine of compounding interest, and every repetition is a deposit, and those deposits shape who you become. So these tiny thoughts, like meditating for 5 minutes, or just reading a single page, or even choosing a kinder thought, may not just shift your mood for the day. It is actually reprogramming your brain. It is sculpting who you become. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite, Instagram. Let me tell you a story of Meera. It's a pseudo name, not a real one. So Meera was a friend's daughter. She was 15 and she was visiting me a few years ago. Every morning what I would notice was Meera would just pick up her phone and start scrolling on Instagram. When I would ask her to move out, she would say, 30 seconds, just a quick scroll. But you know what her brain was learning? Wake up, compare, seek approval. This loop was becoming automatic in her nature. She was not choosing anymore, the wiring was choosing for her. And in neuroscience, we study this loop, and it is called reward prediction error. Reward prediction error is nothing but a gap between your expectations and what actually happens. When the reward is greater than what you expected, the dopamine, the chemical which is responsible for mood and motivation, shoots up. But when the reward is lesser than what you expected, dopamine drops. Wolfgang Schultz at the University of monkeys, he gave them juice as a reward. Now at first, the monkey's brain would lit up at whenever they had the juice. But then he did something interesting. He added a cue, a sound, which would signal that the juice was arriving. Now the monkey's brain would just lit up when they would hear the sound, even before the juice arrived. And then they were just anticipating the reward. But when the juice never came and the cue showed up, the monkey's brain did not just dip. They crashed, leaving the monkeys agitated and restless. Now what this means for us is very simple. We do not just respond to rewards. We respond to the expectation of rewards. And when that reward is unpredictable, for example, the ding of a like or a ping of a comment, our brain gets hooked. The uncertainty is exactly what strengthens the loop. And that's why Meera's 30-second scroll was rewiring her brain for that unpredictable hit of validation every. This is basically the negative compound effect. Meera was waiting for that reward, but when that reward did not come, Meera's brain did not just dip. It crashed. And she would keep refreshing. She would keep checking her phone. She would keep waiting for that unpredictable hit of validation. You know what that was doing? Meera's brain, those 30 seconds of harmless scrolling, was rewiring her brain for years of validation and comparison as compared to presence and self-agency. And the negative compound effect, if that is done for the next 5 years, imagine waking up to someone else's life before your own. Positive or negative, your brain does not care. It cares what you repeat. So let me ask you, what is it that you repeat every single day? Is it the way you start your mornings? Is it the way you set your intentions? Is it the way you talk to yourself? Or is it the way you comb your thoughts, just like you comb your hair? And if you repeat that for the next 5 years, where does it lead? Does it shape a version of you that is kinder, lighter, more at peace? Or does it pull you in the opposite direction? This is a proven, and this is not just theory. I once worked with a 16-year-old girl who did not like the way she looked. Every morning, she would look into the mirror and rehearse the same harsh script. I am not good enough. Now her brain was laying down tracks where self-criticism became her default talk. A 16-year-old brain. So many of you are so close to 16 years of age. It's bursting with possibilities. But repetition can make even a lie sound like a truth. And her reflection was less about the mirror and more about the script she was rehearsing. Now compare that to a 65-year-old woman I worked with. She was rebuilding her life after a divorce. She started incredibly small. She would write notes of self-appreciation. Every evening. It almost felt laughable. But she would write stuff like, I went for a short walk, I cooked a decent meal today, I sat with myself. It felt trivial, but those notes were not about the size of the action. Those notes were about repetition. And neuroscience backs this up. For decades, scientists believed that adult brain was fixed, but research overturned that. In 2011, in a study conducted by Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences, it was believed that just 8 weeks of mindfulness training can increase gray matter density in areas of the brain responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. And that is physical proof that repetition rewires the brain. It is also a proven idea in neuroscience called Hebb's law. Hebb's law is something which states that neurons that fire together wire together. Now, Donald Hebb, a Canadian psychologist, introduced that in 1949. It only means that when two experiences show up together, your brain links them. This is the reason why whenever a particular song plays, you think of a certain person. Or whenever you smell a dish, you're transported back to your childhood. That's Hebb's law at play. And it's not just about music and memories. It can also show up in your everyday life. How you react to feedbacks, how you react to a certain tone of voice. You might get defensive. That's Hebb's law at play. Now, let me just leave you with 3 simple practices because you might be wondering what to do with this idea. Number 1 is write one short line each night. It could be as small as, I helped a colleague today, or I stayed calm in traffic. This would actually train your brain to look for progress rather than mistakes. Number 2, take a deep 30-second breath in an entire day. Whenever you're about to reply to a stressful email or when, basically your mind feels scattered, just pause, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. That is it. Studies at the University of Cambridge and California show that a repeated mindfulness practice can actually reduce stress and strengthen prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for focus and regulation. And last, and my favorite, write an affirmation each day. Repeat it daily. Affirmations are nothing but positive statements about yourself that you repeat to reinforce identity. They're very different from manifestations. Manifestation is about projecting desires outward. Affirmation is about shaping your inner narrative. For example, I am kind to myself, I treat myself with kindness, I am resilient, and I am capable of growth. Affirmations are like mental reps at a gym. Nothing will happen if you do 1 rep. But when you repeat it daily, those repetitions will add up. Nothing actually what I said today is not going to change you in a day. Only when repeated over time, these habits will act as deposits. So the real question isn't, can I change? The real question is, what am I rehearsing? Because, it tracks back to what I asked you in the beginning. Do you comb your hair? We never think before combing our hair. But how often do we think before combing our minds? Because if we do not tend to them, left them unchecked, they will tangle, they will take a shape of their own. But if you tend to them carefully, regularly, consistently, they will feel lighter, easier to carry, easier to sort. And they will not just shape your thoughts, they will shape who you become. Thank you.